All right, so we're on the last section of chapter 9 today. We're reading in Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. And this is the chapter book story time here at the Caribou Public Library. I'm Miss Erin, so thanks for joining us. And let's go ahead and get started. As a reminder, so Meg has been at the Moffat's house, some friends of hers. Been there for 2 weeks. They're having a fancy party tonight. She got all dolled up, borrowed some things from her friends, looking all fancy and fashionable. Laurie was there and wasn't quite as excited about how she was dressed up as she was hoping. And now, Laurie hadn't spoken to her again until supper time. She's drinking champagne with Ned and a friend of his, Fisher, okay? So Laurie says, "You'll have a splitting headache tomorrow if you drink much of that." "I wouldn't, Meg. Your mother don't like it, you know," he whispered, leaning over her chair, as Ned turned to refill her glass, and Fisher stooped to pick up her fan. "I'm not Meg tonight. I'm a doll who does all sorts of crazy things. Tomorrow I shall put away my fuss and feathers and be desperately good again," she answered, with an affected little laugh. "Wish tomorrow was here then," muttered Laurie, walking off, ill-pleased at the change that he saw in her. Meg danced and flirted, chattered and giggled, as all the other girls did. After supper, she undertook the German and blundered through it, nearly upsetting her partner with her long skirt and romping her in a way that scandalized Laurie, who looked on and meditated a lecture. But he had no chance to deliver it, for Meg kept away from him until he came to say goodnight. "Remember," she said, trying to smile, for the splitting headache had already begun. "Silence à la mort," replied Laurie, with a melodramatic flourish, and he went away. He had promised not to tell her family yet. She was going to tell them instead. This little bit of byplay excited Annie's curiosity, but Meg was too tired for gossip and went to bed, feeling as if she had been to a masquerade and hadn't enjoyed herself as much as she expected. She was sick all the next day, and on Saturday went home quite used up with her fortnight's fun and feeling that she had sat in the lap of luxury long enough. "It does seem pleasant to be quiet and not have company manners on all the time. Home is a nice place, though it isn't splendid," said Meg, looking about her with a restful expression, as she sat with her mother and Joe on the Sunday evening. "I'm glad to hear you say so, dear, for I was afraid home would seem dull and poor to you after your fine quarters," replied her mother, who had given her many anxious looks that day, for motherly eyes are quick to see any change in children's faces. Meg had told her adventures gaily and said over and over what a charming time she had had, but something still seemed to weigh upon her spirits, and when the younger girls were gone to bed, she sat thoughtfully staring at the fire, saying little and looking worried. As the clock struck 9 and Joe proposed bed, Meg suddenly left her chair and, taking Beth's stool, leaned her elbows on her mother's knee, saying bravely, "Marmee, I want to confess." "I thought so, dear. What is it?" "Shall I go away?" asked Joe discreetly. "Of course not. Don't I always tell you everything? I was ashamed to speak of it before the children, but I want you to know all the dreadful things I did at the Moffats." "We are prepared," said Mrs. March, smiling, but looking a little anxious. "I told you they rigged me up, but I didn't tell you that they powdered and squeezed and frizzled and made me look like a fashion plate. Laurie thought I wasn't proper. I know he did, though he didn't say so. And one man called me a doll. I knew it was silly, but they flattered me and said I was a beauty, and quantities of nonsense, so I let them make a fool of me." "Is that all?" asked Joe, and Mrs. March looked silently at the downcast face of her pretty daughter and could not find it in her heart to blame her little follies. "No, I drank champagne and romped and tried to flirt and was altogether abominable," said Meg self-reproachfully. "There is something more, I think," said Mrs. March, as she smoothed the soft cheek, which suddenly grew rosy, and Meg answered slowly, "Yes, it's very silly, but I want to tell it because I hate to have people say and think such things about us and Laurie." Then she told the various bits of gossip that she had heard at the Moffats, and as she spoke, Joe saw her mother fold her lips tightly, as if ill-pleased that such ideas should be put into Meg's innocent mind. "Well, If that isn't the greatest rubbish I ever heard, cried Joe indignantly. Why didn't you pop out and tell them so on the spot? I couldn't. It was so embarrassed for me. I couldn't help hearing at first, and then I was so angry and ashamed, I didn't remember that I ought to go away. Just wait till I see Annie Moffat, and I'll show you how to settle such ridiculous stuff. The idea of having plans and being kind to Laurie, because he's rich and may marry us by and by. Won't he shout when I tell him what those silly things said about us poor children, said Joe, and she laughed as if, on second thoughts, the thing struck her as a good joke. If you tell Laurie, I will never forgive you. She mustn't, must she, Mother? Said Meg, looking distressed. No, never repeat that foolish gossip, and forget it as soon as you can, said Mrs. March gravely. I was very unwise to let you go among people of whom I know so little. Kind, I dare say, but worldly, ill-bred, and full of these vulgar ideas about young people. I am more sorry than I can express for the mischief this visit may have done you, Meg. Don't be sorry. I won't let it hurt me. I'll forget all the bad and remember only the good, for I did enjoy a great deal, and thank you very much for letting me go. I'll not be sentimental or dissatisfied, Mother. I know I'm a silly little girl, and I'll stay with you until I'm fit to take care of myself. But it is nice to be praised and admired, and I can't help saying I like it, said Meg, looking half ashamed at the confession. That is perfectly natural, and quite harmless, if the liking does not become a passion and lead one to do foolish or unmaidenly things. Learn to know and value the praise which is worth having, and to excite the admiration of excellent people, by being modest as well as pretty, Meg. Margaret sat thinking a moment, while Jo stood with her hands behind her, looking both interested and a little perplexed, for it was a new thing to see Meg blushing and talk about admiration, lovers, and things of that sort. And Jo felt as if during that fortnight her sister had grown up amazingly and was drifting away from her into a world where she could not follow. Mother, do you have plans, as Mrs. Moffat said? Asked Meg bashfully. Oh, yes, my dear, I have a great many. All mothers do, but mine differ somewhat from Mrs. Moffat's, I suspect. I will tell you some of them, for the time has come when a word may set this romantic little heart of yours right, on a very serious subject. You are young, Meg, but not too young to understand me, and mother's lips are the fittest to speak of such things to girls like you. Jo, your turn will come in time, perhaps, so listen to my plans and help me carry them out if they are good. Jo went and sat on one arm of the chair, looking as if she thought they were about to join in some very solemn affair. Holding a hand of each and watching the two young faces wistfully, Mrs. March said in her serious yet cheery way, I want my daughters to be beautiful, accomplished, and good, to be admired, loved, and respected, to have a happy youth, be well and wisely married, and to lead useful, pleasant lives, with as little care and sorrow to try them as God sees fit to send. To be loved and chosen by a good man is the best and sweetest thing which can happen to a woman, and I sincerely hope my girls may know this beautiful experience. It is natural to think of it, Meg, right to hope and wait for it, and wise to prepare for it, so that when the happy time comes, you may feel ready for the duties and worthy of the joy. My dear girls, I am ambitious for you, but not to have you make a dash in the world, marry rich men merely because they're rich, or have splendid houses which are not homes, because love is wanting. Money is a needful and precious thing, and when well used, a noble thing. But I never want you to think that it is the first or only prize to strive for. I'd rather see you poor men's wives if you were happy, beloved, contented, and queens on thrones without self-respect. Oh, instead of queens on thrones without self-respect and peace. Poor girls don't stand any chance, Belle says, unless they put themselves forward, sighed Meg. Then we'll be old maids, said Jo stoutly. Right, Jo, better be happy old maids than unhappy wives, or unmaidenly girls running about to find husbands, said Mrs. March decidedly. Don't be troubled, Meg. Poverty seldom daunts a sincere lover. Some of the best and most honored women I know were poor girls, but so love-worthy that they were not allowed to be old maids. Leave these things to time. Make this home happy so that you may be fit for homes of your own. if they are offered to you, and contented here if they're not. One thing, remember, my girls, Mother is always ready to be your confidant, Father to be your friend, and both of us trust and hope that our daughters, whether married or single, will be the pride and comfort of our lives." "We will, Marmee, we will," cried both with all their hearts as she bade them good night. And that is the end of chapter 9. Good advice. All right, well, I hope you are continuing to enjoy the reading, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.